Hi everyone, my name is Baltimore. Today I'm going to be doing an overview of rap for you guys, and I'm going to be talking about the 5 key concepts of recovery and all the sections of rap, which are going to include the wellness toolbox, daily maintenance plan, triggers and action plans, early warning signs and action plans, when things are breaking down and action plans, all the parts of the crisis plan, and post-crisis plan. So RAP is founded on 5 key recovery concepts, which are hope, personal responsibility, education, self-advocacy, and support. These 5 concepts have, around the world, been said by many to be key to their recovery. So let's start off with hope. What does hope mean to you? As you listen to me speak, you can think about that. What does hope mean to you? What do you see? What do you feel? For me, hope was when I was 21. I was driving home from work. I was managing a care home for elderly patients with Alzheimer's and dementia. I was quite young for my job, and I loved the job. And on my way home, I heard psh in my ears, and my heart began to race. And without giving out my age, that was quite a while ago, where there were only payphones. And rather than pulling over to a payphone, I drove very fast to get home. And before you knew it, a few weeks had passed by. I was not able to go to work. I was not able to drive. And I was waiting for someone, a doctor, to figure out what was wrong with me. And a lady doctor that I went to said, "There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. You need to see a psychiatrist." And I began my journey of being an agoraphobic for almost a year. For those of you who don't know, I could not leave my house for almost a year, and I was in a 24-hour panic attack. I have explained this to many as living in between sanity and insanity. I knew there was nothing wrong with me. However, my body was telling me constantly, run, hide, you're gonna die, you're not gonna make it. In less than 5 minutes, you're gonna be dead. It was an excruciatingly painful time in my life. Hope for me was the first time that I got around other individuals who were experiencing the same thing, or had experienced, or similar, maybe not to the degree that I had. And hearing their stories and knowing that I wasn't, for lack of a better word, crazy, that I was a normal human being going through different obstacles. That was hope for me. That was hope for me that I could be normal again and live a productive life rather than going on permanent disability, which is what had been proposed to me by my psychiatrist. And I cried. And my doctor said to me, "Why are you crying? This is a good thing. We can get you on disability and you can get a check." And I said, "No, I want to be normal." That was hope to me. And I have one more example, was when I was given benzodiazepines to calm me down, calm my panic down, and I began to see a therapist. And walking into her office, which of course had to be upstairs, where I'm climbing and my heart race is going up, and then the next thing you know, I'm sitting in her chair and I go to grab the bottle of pills, and she says, "What are you doing?" And I said, I gotta take a Klonopin. I said, my heart is beating. And she says, "Why don't you trade sides with me over here and sit on this chair, and the air will hit you better." And at the end of our session, needless to say, she said, "Baltimore, you never took that pill." So I realized in that moment that I had the wherewithal and the power to actually dictate some of my recovery. Although I am, that was 23 years ago, it was a huge sign of hope for me, hope that I could get better. So then let's go on to our next one, personal responsibility. Personal responsibility, and again, these are going to all mean something different for everyone else. An example I give of personal responsibility is that I am in charge of my own recovery. I am responsible for keeping myself healthy, which is, for me, a huge part of rap, which is writing down in my rap, making changes when needed, planning accordingly to take care of my mental health. And one of the biggest parts of personal responsibility for me were, after my last relationship and then going to therapy, were realizing that I was not an angel, and that I tended to find myself as the victim in many circumstances, when in fact that wasn't necessarily the truth. And I had to learn, I wanted to learn, and I was excited to learn about personal responsibility, because then that meant I could change my own actions. I could even put those in my action plans, of when stressors came up or whatever, and taking responsibility for my own life. So that's my favorite part, actually, is the personal responsibility. I love that part. Education is the next one. I have gone to college. I have been educated by professors. I have been educated by my neighbors. I have been educated by clergy, by my family, by my friends, by my clients. For me, education is everywhere. I keep my eyes open and I keep my ears open. And I have learned just from watching and listening throughout my life, again, whether it be in a collegial sense, or it be at work, or it be the homeless man who asked me for change and how he got in his predicament, he or she. That's education to me, is constantly being willing to learn and knowing that I don't have all the answers, and that I need to keep myself open to learning every single day. That's what that means to me. Self-advocacy. Self-advocacy, after going through many trials and tribulations, was learning how to speak to a doctor, speak to a psychiatrist, and professionals who I was always taught you don't question, was learning how to ask questions in a positive manner and working with the professionals so that I could get the answers I needed. And I learned very young that it was okay to ask questions, and that the more I educated myself on my own body and what was going on with my body, it was easier for me to deal with, for lack of a better word, easier. So self-advocacy in many areas, whether that's, I apologize, I cannot do that today, or not even having to apologize, I'm not able to do that today. But being able to advocate for myself, as opposed to going home and knowing that I was going to have to sit with whatever decision I made at the end of the day if I didn't like the decision I had made. Support. Support is huge, huge. We must have support. I've often said I'm not qualified to be my own therapist. I'm not qualified to be my own psychiatrist. I'm probably not qualified to be my own friend. I know that I am my own worst enemy when I am not well, and therefore I need support. In the RAP plan, it is said, that in certain places, you get examples of how you can meet support, whether that's through church or, joining a club, whatever the case may be for you and whatever fits into your comfort zone. Mine took time to figure out that I could have different supporters for different things. My mother could be a huge supporter for one thing, and then a best friend could be a supporter for something else, and that they didn't have to all be the exact same kind of support. I have a great friend right now who recently drove with me out of town to an ALF seminar. She is a huge supporter, and she was the only one that I felt confident going out of town with the first time in 12 years. That's what support is about. For me, non-judgmental, ways of being supportive. So let's talk about the RAP plan, okay? Let's go into section 1, which is a daily maintenance plan. And part 1 is a description of how you feel when you're well. You get to write down and you get to determine what you're like when you're well. Personally, I asked a few of my supporters and friends, hey, what do you notice about me when I'm well? And I got that I was fun-loving and that I joked a lot, sometimes borderline inappropriate. But that's what I'm like when I'm well. I'm playful. I'm giving. Whereas someone else may have the exact same thing, but that may be on their list that we're going to get into of when things are breaking down. For me, that is how I get to describe myself as well. I'm very talkative. So this is the part where you're going to write down how you feel when you're well. And then part 2 is going to be a list of everything you need to do every day to maintain your wellness. I do something that's called a medi-nap, which is I teach meditation and I teach mindfulness, or I run a couple of groups. And so what I have done in the past 20 something years is I go into meditation and it falls into a nap. So I call it a medi-nap, and I've been doing it every single day of my life. That's something I need to do every day to keep myself well, to maintain my wellness. And nobody has to understand it. That hasn't made sense to a lot of people, and I have to be okay with that. That's part of something that I need to do. This is my recipe for life, no one else's. Okay. Part 3 is a list of things you might need to consider doing that day to maintain your wellness and enjoy yourself. So as an example, I can give you an easy one, is going to acupuncture. I don't need to do that every day, but I do that when perhaps I need to do something that day to make myself feel better and enjoy myself. I love acupuncture. So then we're going to move on to section 2, which is triggers. And part 1 in triggers identifies and actually triggers is now being called stressors. So stressors, as those events or situation which, if they occur, may cause uncomfortable feelings or behaviors to begin, okay? So stressor could be traffic, it could be you broke a nail, it could be you get a 48-hour notice. Going to be different for everyone. And part 2 of that is a plan of what to do if any of these stressors occur or triggers. Okay, so there's a lot of traffic, I'm getting really anxious, and now I have a plan of what am I going to do with it. Okay, how am I going to deal with it? Section 3 is early warning signs. And this part, it involves identification of those subtle signs that may tell us that things are beginning to worsen. For me, that's when I don't want to drive. That tells me that things are starting to worsen. They're starting to get a little bit bad. When I don't want to drive and I feel too anxious to drive. So then the part 2 of that is that I'm going to do a plan of if these early warning signs are noticed. Okay, I'm starting not to want to drive. For me recently that happened and I needed to take the afternoon off. And then I went for a swim in the evening and I knew I needed to relax. And for me, that helped for my plan. And so now we're on section 4, which deals with signs that occur when the situation has gotten much worse, okay? But it hasn't yet reached a crisis where you can still take action on your own behalf. Now I'm not driving, okay? That's an example. And then a plan. So, okay, I can't drive. Maybe I'm gonna take an Uber. Maybe I'm gonna take a couple days off of work. A huge one for me is just getting it off my chest and telling one of my supporters what I'm going through. That's huge for me. I call it cleansing to the soul, whether that means that I'm crying or I am just talking or I'm venting. I have found that for me that reduces my anxiety extremely, and that is on my wrap plan for almost every warning sign is that, or stressor that I tell someone. Section 5 is the crisis plan. And these are the signs that they're going to indicate to others that you can no longer make decisions. You can no longer take care of yourself and keep yourself safe. So this is for your supporters to use and healthcare providers on your behalf. But you're the one that develops the plan. This is your plan. Again, this is your recipe for your life, which is what I call mine. I get to develop that. I get to say what's going to happen and what doesn't happen. And, excuse me. So, part one of the crisis plan is information that defines what you're like when you're well. I gave you an example of that earlier about what we're like when we're well, where I said I'm jovial, I'm fun, I'm playful, I like to play around, I like to joke around, and as I said, I'm borderline inappropriate with maybe some of my jokes and stuff. However, that is what I'm like when I'm well. So I'm going to identify that so that perhaps whoever it is that's working with me, once they start to see that, and I make a joke, let's say, okay, well, maybe he's starting to get better. But part two is going to identify those signs that indicate others need to take over responsibility for my care. Okay, so signs that indicate that others need to take over for my care. Yeah, I may need them to drive me around. I may need them to pay my bills. I will dictate in that part. Part three names those supporters and identifies their roles. So as I said earlier, mom, perhaps my checkbook and banking information and everything goes to mom. And mom's going to take care of my bills and stuff. Whereas my animals, that's going to go to Karen. My car and other things my son is going to take care of. And I may just need my son to be there. Just be there with me and be present. But again, I'm going to be specific in that part. I'm going to be specific about what I need so that whoever's reading it, if I choose to give them copies and they read it, they're going to know what exactly I have decided is going to be well for me. Part four is going to identify the medications that I'm okay with and those that I'm not okay with. I'll give you an example. Amoxicillin I'm allergic to, Tylenol with codeine, everything else I'm okay with. I really don't like pain, so I'm okay with whatever else they give me as long as those two aren't involved, because I've had really horrible side effects from those, which the amoxicillin I just figured out about 3 weeks ago and added that to my list. That was something new. I'd never taken it before. So in part five, we're going to develop a plan to use at home with community care in a respite treatment center, which facilities, instead of hospitalization. So instead of hospitalization, what would we like to do? What am I going to use at home? Okay, my son Josh, I need you to be here with me and make sure that I relax. Or I need you to be here with me and take me to the gym each evening with you. I have heard of others who say that theirs has to go with going to a hotel for a couple days, getting into the jacuzzi and those kind of things. So again, this is going to be for you what you're okay with in using at home, with community care or in a respite center instead of hospitalization. And part six is going to identify the treatments that, if they're necessary, are okay with you. I am not into shock therapy. I'm not into the other one. It's 3 letters where they put the things on your head. I had that done once, and I'm absolutely terrified of it. However, if that works for you, more power to you. I am not okay with that. So that is something I would list that I am not okay with, ever. I do not want any kind of shock or anything that deals with my brain that has to do with electrical currents or, but I am okay with psychotropic medications, okay? And yeah, so we identified the treatments which, if necessary, are okay, and why not. So part 8 is an intensive description of what is wanted from supporters. Okay, so what do I need from my supporters? What do I need you to do? How do I also let you know that that I don't need you anymore? How does that all happen? well, like I said, we get to write this. And so that's going to be giving our information, our description of what is needed. And then part 9 is going to be giving, that's going to be giving the information for supporters to use in determining when we don't need to use the crisis plan anymore. Like, I'm okay now. I'm totally okay. You can go home, or you can go back to whatever you were doing. You don't need to worry about me. Okay, awesome. So then we have our post-crisis plan, okay? And this is going to be, if you have the book, or you can go to the Copeland Center and check out some books, but questions that are going to guide you through the challenging time when you're healing from a crisis. Walking step by step, being able to use your daily maintenance plan again. So this is for post-crisis, once the crisis has already transpired and now you're trying to get back to some normalcy. You notice I use normalcy in quotations because we're all very different. So there's also wraparoundtheworld.com. You know, I had mentioned support to find wrap groups closest to you. And I will close with saying that wrap has changed my life. Rap has changed my life in such a good way, and I suggest it to my friends, my families. I think it's absolutely has the potential and power to be life-changing if you put as much into it as you can, you know. And I have a lot of gratitude for BJ North and how she introduced me to rap in 2012, and Jawanza and Waynette. I've never forgotten them, and I'm going to close with showing you that behind me I still have my certificate from 2012, which was BJ North, Jawanza, Waynette, and then I have up there the Seminar 2 in March 15th, and then I have up there the Seminar 3. So, much love, namaste, have a great day.